Well, here it is. It's the month of September, and here we are. It's time for Jonesing for football. Bill Jones in Dallas wearing my cowboy blue, as you can see if you're watching on CBSNewsTexas.com. We're streaming young Cody Winstead wearing his Philly green because, of course, he is in Philadelphia. We are going to be combative all season long. The Cowboys versus the Eagles, supremacy in the NFC East on the line. And Cody has come prepared because he's got the Jonesing for Football sign over his right shoulder. Welcome to football season, young Cody.
Nice to see you, Bill Jones. I didn't know if we would be back for Jonesing for football. We've taken a month off at probably not the best time to take a month off, but hey, we were both busy. It's training camp. Doing our coverage, but we're back and ready for the season.
The reason that we have taken a month off is because we were in the laboratory. For the last month, we have been preparing for Jonesing for footballs to keep you apprised of exactly what's going on with your favorite football teams. And so now we are rested, ready. I don't know. You look even better than what you did a month ago, young Cody. The summer has treated you well.
Well, thank you, Bill Jones. I've been out and about. I did a bunch of training camps. We went to Baltimore. I saw the Jets and Giants. I saw the Eagles. I saw the Colts. I saw the Seahawks. I know you saw the Seahawks. Bill Jones, tell me about calling Cowboys preseason games.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, the Cowboys with their 3 preseason games. First off, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then a trip to Seattle for the Seahawks, and they closed it out with the Las Vegas Raiders. And yes, we had a nice weekend in Seattle. Just missed you. I understand you were there just prior to the Cowboys Seahawks being there. But now, I mean, it's funny because we have spent the last month talking about these players who got cut this past week. Now it's game week. All right, we're staring straight ahead at Kansas City and Detroit Thursday night football. Cowboys play the Giants Sunday night football. Eagles get a bye the first week. Is that right?
Pretty much at New England. That's a bye.
Oh, and for you longtime listeners to Jonesing for Football, which you can now watch on CBS News Texas streaming, as well as wherever you find your podcast, you know that I have always been a big Bill Belichick fan. And so even though everyone else says the Patriots aren't going to be any good, I'm always looking at the bright side. The cup is always half full with Bill Belichick's team, in my opinion.
And one of my favorite things to do is ribbing you about the Patriots and how bad they're going to be. So that I'm glad I was jonesing for that, Bill Jones. I was jonesing for football and for mocking you a little bit about the Patriots.
By the way, speaking of the Patriots, and back when they were winning Super Bowls, when they had great running backs like Rex Burkhead lining up in the backfield, guess who texted me during the last preseason game with a picture? He was watching our last preseason game. Rex Burkhead himself texted me in the booth, and so I was texting back, when are you going to sign with somebody? We interviewed Stephen Jones at halftime. He was texting me saying, tell Stephen to sign me. So there you go. Rex is out there. He's ready to go when whoever wants him.
Look at you, the middleman, brokering the deal.
That's right.
Nice. You deserve a bonus for that.
And of course, Babe Loffenberg has, speaking of text messages, he has been peppering us with text messages the last month. I don't know how he has survived without his jonesing for football.
He said he hasn't worked out since the last jonesing for football, which was about a month ago. So we need to get Babe back on the elliptical. And so we're going to jump into today's podcast, right?
We are. And, that reminded me the memes of Zeke Elliott in the Patriots uniform. That's what the bloated Zeke in the Patriots uniform. That's Babe now because he hasn't been on the elliptical in a month.
Yeah, he's added some pounds during training camp due to us. But hey, let's get into it, Bill Jones, because we have a very big episode of Jonesing for Football. I want to explain what we're doing today. Initially, we were going to do a podcast previewing every division. We were going to go one by one, 8 podcasts. We started with the NFC East, then we did the AFC East, then training camp happened, and we still have 6 to go. So we've redone the plan. We're going to do a big NFC East pod today, and then we're going to follow it up with a big AFC pod coming up here. And then we'll do our season preview, which I've been working on, and I'm really excited about doing that. We got to get that in before the season.
We are going to be very busy here this week.
Tell me about it. No pods for a month. Now we're going to do 3 in about 5 days. So here we go. We're hitting the ground running. Mr. Jones, you are going to handle the NFC East and the NFC West.
Okay.
Take the NFC North and the South. But let's start with the NFC East. You're there in Dallas. I'm here in Philly repping my Kelly Green. That's what they tell me. They told me at the Eagles I was representing Kelly Green. So break down the division for me. What sticks out to you?
And we're not picking the division yet. That will be on a later episode before the season opener. Okay, we'll have our season predictions coming up. This is just to give you a handle if you've been a normal person and been vacationing in summertime, getting you up to speed on what exactly has happened. Because one of the big things, as I just mentioned, we've been talking so much about these backups on the team, the guys playing in these preseason games, that the starters have kind of fallen by the wayside. So starting with my Cowboys, okay? My Cowboys here in Dallas. Of course, the big additions for the team, Brandon Cooks on offense and Stephon Gilmore on defense. Would you agree with that?
Yep. And Mozzie Smith, the first rounder. I think he's going to be big.
Okay, the jury is still out on Mozzie Smith. Now, he did get a lot of playing time in the preseason, and some question marks are there about the first round draft pick. In fact, I was talking with Nate Newton just this morning, and he's got his own question marks, this former 6-time Pro Bowler for the Cowboys. Mozzie's going to be in a rotation, though, but they were trying to get him up to speed, making the transition from being a nose tackle or one technique at Michigan and making the transition to the NFL. He had his moments in the preseason. He had some not so good moments in the preseason, but he's going to be in a rotation with Jonathan Hankins and the interior of that Cowboys defensive line. Oso Odighizuwa is going to have a big year, I think. The 3 technique, Neville Gallimore made the team as well. They cut Quentin Bohanna, but Brandon Cooks on offense. He is exactly what this offense needed a year ago, especially when Michael Gallup was coming off the ACL. Now Gallup is a year removed from that. And so you got the big 3 at receiver with CeeDee Lamb coming off a 100-catch season, Michael Gallup, and Brandon Cooks. Cooks has looked great in training camp, and I expect him to have a big year. Tony Pollard has looked good coming off his injury at the end of the year last year. The biggest question mark for the Cowboys offensively will be, can they stay healthy on their offensive line? And, of course, Tyron Smith has not been able to stay healthy the last several years. And so across the line, though, you got Tyron Smith at left tackle. You got Tyler Smith, the second-year player at left guard who started at left tackle last year. Tyler Biadasz at center. Zach Martin got signed finally, ready to go at right guard. And Terrence Steele, one of the big positives from the preseason, coming off his ACL. He didn't miss a beat in training camp, and so he's ready to go at right tackle. Flip it over to the defense. And Micah is going to have a huge year when we make our predictions for Defensive Player of the Year next a couple of podcasts from now. Don't be surprised if his name gets mentioned. Chris Collinsworth says he thinks that Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the league, to give you a little preview there. And I don't know if the Cowboys' offensive tackles are that bad or if Micah Parsons is that good, but the Cowboys were having all sorts of difficulties in practice blocking that guy. So there's your Cowboys. There's a little overview on the Cowboys. And then obviously the Eagles, though, they're the team to beat right in the NFC East. Would you agree with that?
Very much so. Bill Jones, I've been trying all year or all offseason to figure out a way to pick the Cowboys to win the division. And I don't want to give away my pick totally, but from the practice,
you just gave it away, though. Your hesitation just gave it away.
Yeah, the practice I went to in Philly, plus the people I talked to who attended practices in Oxnard and in Philly, they said, dude, you got to go with the Eagles. So I trust them. And Philly is just, to me, they are the most talented roster in the league, plus really good at the three most important areas. Bill Jones, best offensive line in the league, top 5 defensive line, maybe top 3. And Jalen Hurts at quarterback has turned into one of the most dynamic players in the league. That's why I like Philly, plus incredible depth as well.
And the thing that worked so well for Philly last year, and one of the big reasons Jalen Hurts had the season he had, was they were able to stay injury-free for the most part on their offensive line. Lane Johnson was dealing with something late in the season, but they were able to get through that and make it all the way to the Super Bowl. They were able to somehow keep the key guys in their secondary on the roster, in Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And, the move that they made prior to last season and picking up A.J. Brown on draft day, and Devontae Smith just keeps getting better and better. And at running back with DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, if they can stay healthy there, they look like they're loaded. So fast forward to the Giants. Cowboys open against the Giants, and the Giants coming off a season last year where they surprised a lot of people by making some noise. Cowboys went up there in September and were able to handle them, but the Giants by the end of the season were a different team than what they were early in the season. And, Kayvon Thibodeau back in September was just getting going when the Cowboys went up there, and he flashed already in the little bit of time that he played in the preseason coming off that edge. And I like what they did, even adding A'Shawn Robinson to the mix on their defensive line with who they have in the middle. I mean, the defensive lines for all these teams, if you're looking at defensive tackles especially, and I guess you can throw the edge rushers in there too when you consider the Cowboys with Micah Parsons. The NFC East is loaded, and it starts with the Giants with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams inside, and then, of course, what Washington has as well. It's going to be interesting, though, with Brian Daboll and the Giants this year, and if they can duplicate what they did last year, or actually take it to the next level, because it's still sort of even though they drafted Jalen Hyatt, they have more weapons on offense, and with the acquisition as well as Darren Waller at tight end, he's going to be big for them. But are they getting enough explosive players on offense to score a lot of points with Daniel Jones at quarterback?
Yep, I agree. No team in the league had fewer 20-plus yard completions than the Giants last year. And so can they turn that around? I think that'll be the big difference. I don't think they're a real threat to win the NFC East. I'm not sure if you've changed your opinion on that or not, Bill Jones. What do you think?
Well, but they are a threat to win even against the Cowboys and the Eagles. If they put it together, there's no reason. It's whether they can sustain it week in and week out to be able to win the division. Now, I think, I think actually for teams like the Cowboys, even like the Eagles, I don't think it's an embarrassment to go 3-3 in this division this year, because it's going to be pretty competitive, I think. And which brings us to Washington. And of course, the big story there, they're going with Sam Howell at quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is the backup, and Sam Howell in his one start last year, the last game against the Cowboys, they're living off that. But he's got some traits that make you think that, okay, there's a reason why they're going with him as the starter. He's got a competitive fire about him and so forth. And but the jury's still out on him. And I love Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. They, like the Giants, trying to, even if you look at McLaurin and Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel on their depth chart at wide receiver, and those three guys, they can do some things. But, Washington is clearly a step behind everybody else in the division, I think.
Yep, I would agree. I watched Sam Howell in the preseason, and he looked good, and he put up some really nice numbers in the preseason. Again, not playing against all the starters and all that, but 3 touchdowns, no picks, 122 passer rating. He looked comfortable in the pocket, which I was surprised with. And so maybe they know something we don't.
The biggest thing the Commanders did this offseason is they changed owners. Right.
Agreed.
That's why they have renewed energy, the whole fan base in Washington, because of the change in ownership.
Yep. No matter what happens, it was a successful season for the Commanders. All right, Bill Jones, how about we jump to the NFC North? You ready for that?
I'm ready.
All right. I'm going to start with the Vikings because they won the division last year. I feel like their slight reset was probably needed. I actually like this little youth movement. Dalvin Cook out, Andre Madison in, Adam Thielen out, Jordan Addison in, Zadarius Smith out, Marcus Davenport in, Aaron Kendricks out, Brian Asamoah in, Patrick Peterson out, Andrew Booth in. So the Vikings are kind of turning over kind of that old regime there. And I think that's a pretty good move for them. I think Minnesota is being slightly overlooked a little bit. If you win 13 games, and I know they were 11-1 in close games last year, if you win 13 and go to the playoffs, you're a pretty decent squad. And so to me, they should probably be the favorites in the NFC North. That leads me to the Lions, Mr. Jones. Everyone knows I love the Lions. They were my sleeper team last year, just missed the playoffs, barely. But I think they're headed to the postseason this year. A lot of good young players. More than at any point in my lifetime, the Lions have more good young players than ever. I love their running backs, the solid receiver group, tight end group as well. The O-line is terrific. And Jared Goff is the perfect guy to play that style. He's going to spread it around, let the defense dictate who gets the rock, and not turn the ball over. And I want to make a prediction. The Lions, franchise record for points per game, 29.6. They set that in 2011. I think this year's Lions, they go over 30 points per game, Mr. Jones.
And that's not a stretch because they were 5th in the league in points scored last year.
Exactly. So I like what the Lions are doing. I think they're in a great position, and I look forward to them. Go ahead.
Well, what about their defense? They were 32nd in the league in total defense last year.
Ouch. I mean, you hurt me a little bit with that one, Bill Jones. I am still worried about that, mostly along the D-line. I think they did improve the linebacker core and the secondary significantly, but I'm worried about the D-line and the depth. That's why I do think Jack Campbell, who was one of their first-round picks, he's going to be really good at linebacker, but I'm not sure that he was the smartest decision there. They could have gone D-line with somebody like Kalijah Cansey. They could have gone Mozzie Smith. They could have gone Miles Murphy. They could have gone Nolan Smith to add to that D-line. That's something I'll be looking forward to, or I'm looking at this season with the Lions.
All right, and on the Vikings, the reason that people haven't jumped on board all the close games they won last year, what are the odds they can win all those close games again this year? And then also Kirk Cousins. I think that some people who have watched the quarterback documentary, are not as in on Kirk Cousins as others are, according to my daughter anyway. She isn't. I like Kirk Cousins going back to when he was coming out. He was one of my guys in the draft when he came out and wound up being a 4th round draft pick. But yeah, actually, I think my daughter has as much problem with his wife as she does with Kirk.
He does with that. By the way, Kirk Cousins, I've worked for NFL Network 8 seasons. Kirk Cousins is probably the nicest guy I've ever worked with in the NFL.
I think it was the room with all of the Kirk Cousins memorabilia that kind of soured my daughter Jordan on him. And
hey, that's fair. That's fair. We're all entitled to our own thing.
Cody has his own room with all his memorabilia,
exactly.
right?
This is all stuff about my life. And
game balls. You got a game ball on your shelf right there. Yeah.
Oh, right. And I don't even
look at me. Over my shoulder. I got my little league trophies are on my
exactly. Your daughter would have liked your setup, Bill Jones.
That's right. I got a picture of me playing high school basketball back here. Why am I complaining about Kirk Cousins?
Exactly. All right, let me wrap up this NFC North real quick, and then I'll get to the South. Packers and Bears. I'm telling you right now, Bill Jones, I did 3 weeks at training camps. I think the Packers are going to surprise a lot of people. I think their team is very solid. I love their running backs. I love their O-line. The defense is loaded with first-round players. And I think Jordan Love is going to be a little bit better than everyone is anticipating. Chicago, I like the improvement of Chicago.
All right, here we go. Justin Fields. Here we go. Justin Fields.
I'm just not sure they're going to take quite the jump everyone thinks. And so, yeah, that's my NFC North breakdown. Anything you want to say before I get
on the Packers? And I haven't watched Jordan Love enough to have an opinion really on Jordan Love. No one's watched him enough because he hasn't played enough for anyone to have an opinion on him.
Matt LaFleur, that's it.
And I like Christian Watson, okay, even though Cowboy scouts say that he has no hands. Well, he had enough hands to score 3 touchdowns against them last year. But they're so inexperienced on with their skill position players on offense, wide receivers and tight ends, that it's going to be very difficult. They all could turn into really good players, but it's going to be very difficult this year to have so many first and second year guys trying to do it.
And I think LaFleur knows that, which is why they are going to be a heavy run team. They are going to feature the run. Jones and Dillon are studs. And so I'm telling you.
And the defenses know that.
That's true. But that makes everything easier for Jordan Love. That's all I'm saying. All right, I'll knock out the NFC South real quick here, Bill Jones, because
it won't take long.
Exactly. Last year,
all you got to do is talk about your New Orleans Saints.
Well, I'll get to that. Last year, all these teams were basically the same. The Bucs won the division 9-8. The other 3 teams only finished a game back. And so this year, I do think the Saints are going to be clearly the class of the division. Thank you for setting me up for that, Bill Jones. Nothing's changed over training camp. I still love the Saints. I think Derek Carr is going to be the perfect quarterback for that group. And the defense is really good. Say what you want about Dennis Allen as a head coach, but he can coach a defense, that's for sure. They were finished 5th in total defense last year, top 7 each of the last 3 years with DA as the DC. And so I love that group. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. I could keep going if you'd like me to, but I'm not going to. So I think the Saints win a lot of games. Their over-under's 9.5, Mr. Jones. I think tick, 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 tick. They're going over. And I'd say way over.
What are they going in their division?
5-1.
Okay, 5-1.
5-1 in the division.
And so who's going to beat them?
Probably the Falcons.
Okay. They split with the Falcons and they sweep Tampa Bay and Carolina.
I think that's probably the case. Let me talk a little bit about ATL because they're an intriguing team. They're similar to the Packers and the regard of they're built to make the playoffs right now. There's just that question mark at quarterback. And I have more faith in Jordan Love than I do Des Ridder. But make no mistake about it. Go look at the Falcons roster because I'm telling you, not many people have. Their offensive line is very good. Bijan is going to be a beast. Drake London is a very talented player. Kyle Pitts on offense. And they loaded up with veterans on the defensive side of the ball as well. So I think Atlanta contends for a playoff spot. I'm just not going to I'm going to say they just barely missed due to Des Ridder. And then the Panthers, I like Bryce. I mean, the big thing for Bryce is if Bryce Young is good at all this year, they've got a bright future. Their defense is solid. They got some solid veterans on the offensive side, but Bryce is going to be better than most people think. I'm a little worried about the O-line because they couldn't protect him at all in the preseason. But I do think the Panthers are going to be better, kind of right around 500, but I'm telling you about Bryce Young. He's going to be magic, and he's going to make some plays. And then the Bucs, Bill Jones, another team for Baker, his fourth in just about the last year and a half. This is probably his last opportunity to start. The Bucs, if you look at the roster, they're not that bad either. They have a lot of players especially on defense, who are part of the Super Bowl team. They've got some talented players on defense. They'll probably win around 6 games, but similar to last year when all these teams were kind of similar. I think it's the Saints take a jump up, and then the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Bucs. They're all kind of right around that just under 500 area.
Okay, so which division in the NFC has the 2 worst teams?
Which division in the NFC has the 2 worst teams?
Yes.
I would say the NFC West.
Yeah, that's right. So we save the worst for last, the NFC West.
Well done.
I'm not talking about you San Francisco 49ers. I'm not talking about you Seattle Seahawks. But the 2 worst teams in the NFC have to be, all you got to do is look at their roster. The Rams and especially the Cardinals. Especially the Cardinals. So let's start, and we're going to look at the NFC West. Start with the Niners and the Seahawks. The Niners are going to be the pick of many, but the Seahawks, I love what Pete Carroll's doing out there, and we got a chance to see him firsthand. Not only when they played against the Cowboys in the preseason, but just studying their roster and so forth. And if they can stay healthy, they've got a shot. Now, they didn't stay healthy in the game against the Cowboys. Jackson Smith and Jigba catches a 48-yard pass down to the 1-yard line, and he gets hurt on the play. And so he's so his ability to be able to start the season healthy. And, of course, he ran into injury problems at Ohio State as well. He's a product here in Dallas of Rockwall High School, a former Landry Award winner as the top player in North Texas. I throw that out there. But if Geno Smith can duplicate what he did a year ago, but you got to love what they've got. Jackson Smith and Jigba will be back soon enough. But how about them picking up this Jake Bobo out of UCLA? Who, did you see his 40 time?
No, but I saw him play against Dallas.
Yeah, he ran like a 4.9.
Really?
Yes. And yet he was the star of training camp for the Seahawks, made the roster, and he's going to be the guy filling in as the third receiver until Jackson Smith and Jigba gets back. Of course, they got DK Metcalf, they got Tyler Lockett, and Pete Carroll loves to run that football, and they've added Zach Charbonnet to the mix along with Kenneth Walker. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the Seahawks can challenge San Francisco, but the Niners, you just got to love what they've done as far as building that team on both sides of the football. And, even though they make a colossal mistake in the draft, trading up three first round picks and a third round pick to trade up to take Trey Lance at number 3 overall, they overcome that and have been able to advance all the way, like last year, to an NFC Championship game with the last pick in the draft in Brock Purdy. That shows you how good that football team is, that it didn't matter who was playing quarterback for them. They still could make it all the way to the NFC Championship game. Take nothing away from Brock Purdy. I think with his experience coming out of Iowa State, that's why he was able to do what he did in his first year. But, San Francisco, you're shooting for the Niners in that division. The Seahawks are right behind, but you look at that Rams roster, and there are so many guys on their training camp roster who I had never heard of before. And we follow college football pretty closely. We certainly follow the draft closely. And I'm like, what is going on? And of course, they've just been beset because of the salary cap, and they made their run to the Super Bowl, and now they're paying the price for it. And then Arizona is tanking with what they're running out there at quarterback with Joshua Dobbs and Clayton Tune until Kyler Murray gets back.
Yep, they're on Caleb Williams' watch already, which is fine. I understand. I am intrigued by Clayton Tune, though, Mr. Jones.
I like him.
But both of us identified him before the draft, and now he's in the mix to start week 1.
By the way, while we are patting ourselves on the back, who's the quarterback, a mid-round quarterback that besides Clayton Tune that I really liked?
I don't remember. It's been too long.
DTR.
Yeah.
Dorian Thompson Robinson, and I didn't watch him play, but I heard a lot of good reports out of Cleveland on him. And of course, he's now the backup.
I watched every preseason game that they played. First of all, I think I watched like way too much preseason football, 99th percentile. But I watched DTR every game, and he was really good. I was actually texting my friends during their second preseason game saying, I think Josh Dobbs better watch out because DTR is about to take his job. Come to find out a few weeks later, he gets moved to Arizona.
Well, and bringing it back to what the Cowboys did in picking up the quarterback from San Francisco, he had at North Dakota State, he had one season where he started 16 games and they won the national championship. And then they had the COVID year, one game he plays. Well, if you look at DTR and what he did at UCLA, I mean, he was a multiple year starter, so many reps, so many games under his belt. And it goes back to what Bill Parcells always said, that give me a guy that's got experience. Brock Purdy's another great example of it. And so I think that is one of the reasons why I like what the Cowboys did in acquiring Trey Lance, because he's basically right now where Dak Prescott was when he first came into the league at age 23. And that's the age Trey Lance is right now. They got him with a 4th round pick.
Yep. It's amazing. I just looked up some notes. So I worked on Thursday Night Football last year, and I pitched this as like a graphic to our producer, Fred Gadelli, one of the best to ever do it, by the way, that Lance at the time, this was a year ago, he had thrown 389 passes in a real football game since he graduated high school. And that was 4 years ago. And so it was 113 in high school, 318 in college, and then at the time, 71. So plus whatever he had last year, which was not many at all, obviously. And so you compare that, Tom Brady had more than that in one season. So he just a lot, and I'm assuming that's the talk down there in Dallas with Trey Lance is he just doesn't have a lot of game experience, let alone throwing the football in games.
Yeah. All right. Well, there was our sneak preview there of the NFC divisions, and we will make our picks later in the week, right?
Yes, sir. Can't wait. And it's good to be back with you, Mr. Jones. I want to say this, I enjoyed listening to Cowboys and Raiders, the preseason game. Cowboys Raiders was your last one, right?
That's right. Yes. Well, thank you.
I watched the whole thing on NFL Network. You did a phenomenal job. You and Isaiah Stanback. You did a great job in your interview with Stephen Jones, which you mentioned.
Well,
and I even noticed the nugget when you said there was a player on the Cowboys whose team in college beat Washington as their win, to kind of jab at Isaiah Stanback. I see what you did there. I liked that. That was good.
Chase Garber's the quarterback, the 4th quarterback on the roster for the Raiders. That's where this research, this voluminous notebook comes in handy. You find out little nuggets like that to prod your partner. Okay?
I give you a standing O from here in Philly. Well done, Bill.
All right. Well, thank you very much, young Cody. And we're off to a rocking start this season. And can't wait to talk AFC when we convene next on the next edition of Jonesing
for Football. See you, babe.